wire it up. All right, so in part one, we talked about wiring up just a receptacle. Fantastic. Let's talk about wiring up something else, a light. Arguably the second most basic thing you can wire up. Why not just wire up a switch while we're at it? Okay, a few things before we go. We know that the black wire is the hot wire. You do not want to put the switch on the white wire. You only want to put it on the hot. The hot is giving the electricity. You want to turn that on or off. Okay? We want to make sure that is turned on or off. Okay? So, knowing that principle, knowing that the switch never goes on the white, we can safely connect this, and it's pretty simple and pretty easy. Now, if you just want to connect a straight light to this and it's on all the time, there's no stopping you. You can definitely do that. You can even get one that it has a key. This is a keyless one. A key is like one of those little pull tabs that turn off and on the light. Switch is kind of built into it. You can do that as well. But for most people's households, they're going to want to have a switch, and code even states that you need to have a switch on every entrance to turn off a light for that room. Okay, so let's start wiring this up. Okay, remember from the last video, there needs to be 6 inches of free wire in each box. But in between the boxes needs to be covered with the Romex sheathing. So, what I like to do is I like to measure the distance between my boxes. These are very small boxes, so it gets us about, I'm going to estimate 3 inches. And I'm going to add 6 to each of those. So that would be a total of 15 inches. So what I would do is I would take my wire, measure out 15 inches, mark, and cut. Now, while I'm here, I might as well prep and prepare for my light switch. If you're wiring this up, hopefully you've already cut out your spot in your wall or your ceiling for your light. If you haven't, now's the time, stop this video, go cut it out, and get it ready. Put an old work box. If you're adding a light, you're gonna need a box called an old work box. It may look just like this blue box, except it kind of screws into the drywall and holds there. If it's a ballast or a top one, it has these 2 bars that come out and really lock into that drywall on your ceiling. Very secure, perfectly fine, okay? Do that right now. If you are, for some reason, watching this and you're a builder and you have a house that's completely gutted, or you're in the process of gutting a house and you took out all the drywall and you're using new work boxes, make sure that box is secure and in, and take some time and measure. Now this measurement right here is about 3 inches as well. So I'm gonna cut out another one of these, all right? It's important to get all your wire laid out before you start doing anything crazy. Now, if you are working on old work, it may be better to not cut your wire and fish it using fish tape. Fish it to wherever you need to bring it. Now I'm using all new work, and so I don't really need to worry about fishing because I can just push it through without having any sort of issues. But if you're using old work, you need to go through the drywall and fish it up, right? And every particular part of the ceiling, the roof, needs to have some sort of access panel that you can easily jump over. Maybe later on in this series, when I build more stuff, you can see what that looks like, okay? But right now, I have 2 of these. I'm gonna set this aside real quick. Code states I need 6 inches of free wire. I've already said that in the beginning of this video. So we're gonna take our wire, we're gonna set it down, and we're gonna measure out 6 inches. Now, a lot of these new fancy tools will have some sort of marking on your tool. If they don't, or if you didn't buy that particular tool that had all the markings, because how would you know, or this is what your dad gave you whatsoever, or whatever, we can take this tape measure, lock it at 6, make a mark, come in from the other side, mark it at 6, make a mark, okay, perfect. I'm only gonna have a little bit of sheathing left. So, the way we would do this, the way I would do this, I would take my knife, just kind of score where I want it to go. I'm not gonna cut in deeply. However, I am going to kind of push, and I can kind of feel in between each of those wires, and I can take my knife and run it down, like so. And it looks like I caught a little bit of that copper, but I can show you what to do if that happens. So we take this off, that little mark, I can just rip the Romex, and there we go. I'm gonna push that copper kind of back in, that bare copper. Now inside Romex, you're gonna find a couple different things. There is a plastic, or not plastic, but you might find plastic. It's usually a kind of construction paper lining, right? So you can just rip that off, cut it off, doesn't matter. Same thing, this is the best way it works that I found. just score the Romex across the line, kind of find an empty spot and cut. Okay, looks like I kind of got a couple of the wires. Okay, and then right where I cut, I can easily just rip it off. It's the best way of doing it that I found. Now, your Romex is secure. Now for this application, because I'm using a kind of a beginner's piece, for this particular application, please make sure that you have enough Romex covering. You're not going to have your boxes this close together. I understand that. So please make sure there's Romex still covering it. Now, do not be confused if you see a couple different wires at the grocery store, or not grocery store, Jesus, if you're finding this stuff at the grocery store, maybe go to a different store. At the hardware store, Home Depot, whatever, understand that you are going to see a couple different ones. You might see solid core wire like this, or something called stranded cable. Stranded cable has a bunch of little tiny wires that we see in like electrical, like small electrical components. Those are little strands you can like wrap around, that sort of thing. Don't buy that, right? It technically could still work. Use solid core, okay? Okay, we got our wire cut out. Let's go fish it through and continue working. Okay, since I'm adding this to this, I'm going to unscrew my ground and kind of undo what I just did, because I'm gonna need to tie in my ground again. So I don't typically like to twist my grounds. You never know what's gonna happen. So I like to just have my grounds pretty straight. They kind of twist up pretty good in the wire nut as well. So one part about electrical is that there's the right way to do it, and there's a bunch of other ways that will get you to the same kind of, you know, feeling. Okay. From there, we have our wire. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fish it through. Now, luckily, I can move my wall a little bit. You may not be able to do that, but it's okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go like this. We're gonna go up, over. We're gonna kind of bend this down, and we're gonna do like a little U shape to get in. So we're just gonna kind of fish it, pull it, and we're gonna make sure that our sheathing's, oh, look at that. Our sheathing is covered. We could probably cut a little less than that, but our sheathing is definitely covered, so that's okay. Now I like to put it straight up in like a U shape. And move on, and we're going to take off 1.5 inches about of our wire. Some of you that are like actual electricians that may be watching this might be screaming, hey, like 1.5 inches is too much. I don't know, man, it's what code states, at least where I'm from, so I don't know. Code might be different where you're from, so that's why it's important to kind of check your code and see what the restrictions and regulations are. Okay, just like before, if you watch part 1, kind of do the little hoop around, and should be good to go. Okay, the pro tip again is to make sure you're going in the same direction as your screw. I'm gonna make sure that okay. So you see how I have a little bit of bare wire sticking out right there? I don't want that. It's a little bit too much. Now, I don't want a little bit of bare wire. I don't want whoever to kind of deal with this later on to have kind of a shocking result. So I'm going to cut off just a little bit and just redo this. Uh-oh, pulled out the other wire. It's all right. Pull it back in here in a moment. I'm just going to undo it from our little makeshift wall here. Now it's important to do what we're doing, because what's going to happen is the electricity is going to travel from our nice little plug right here and move on to our switch, at least, right? Just a little bit so you don't get a short. Beautiful. Same thing with this one, the other side. Okay, kind of just hook it on right here. Okay. Now when I teach this to kids, we do these boxes first. We move on to breakers and outdoor boxes. And the last year I have them, we do old work boxes. So they learn a whole range of this kind of skill. Same thing with this. We take it and we wire nut it together. You can twist them together. I really don't like doing that because I like being able to add if I need to. And the wire nut does hold on pretty good without having to twist it. There we go. So let's fix this now. Pushing the extra wire through with the Romex. I'm gonna do that little U shape. This would be actually a hair easier if it was on the wall. And if it wasn't like so weird like it is now. So there we go. Oops, move the camera around. So there we go. We're in. We got our Romex kind of protecting that wire, and we are going to move on to installing our switch. Okay, here we go. Again, strip. The hardest part for kids to really understand is the flow of the electricity and where the electricity is going. Just understanding that the black is going to carry everything and the white is literally the return, and to have the return as obstructed or not obstructed as possible is super important, right? And I think that's probably any advice I give to anyone doing electrical is just think about where your electricity is going and how you can actually harness that electrical power. So let's make sure we strip our wires. Get everything kind of good to go for this. Okay, so like I was saying, as unobstructed as possible, the white wires is your return. You are going to use a wire nut. They come in all different sizes. They carry different cables, different number of cables, that sort of thing. For this one, we're only doing 2, so one of the smaller ones works just fine. All right, make ones that are colored, but I just get the yellow, red, and the green for the ground, so people know. Okay. Now, what's important, there's nothing that really upsets me, that really, you know, I don't know, grinds my gears more than having a backwards on-off switch. You'll see where it says on and off on the switch. So that means it has to be faced this way. So wherever the power is coming from, that's where it has to face. So once we got that direction, then we're good to go. If you place it like this, then it's going to be upside down. Everyone's going to be upset. And even the power won't necessarily flow the right way whenever you turn on, off, and on. Okay? Okay. Awesome. Okay. So same deal. Kind of just make that little hoop shape. There are a wide range of switches. There are 3 ways, there are 2 ways, there are 4 ways, there's a bunch of different kinds of switches. So when you go to the store, just figure out what you want to kind of cover. Do you want to control 1 device, 3 devices, 4 devices? What do you want to cover? Then that's how you can figure out what kind of switch you might need. This is just a single, simple, I guess, 1-way switch. Okay, so this is right way. We're going to just kind of push this around, wrap it around. Let's, there we go. Let's screw this on. That one's good. Turn this one. And just a little hair. Great. Just gonna screw it on. Beautiful. Okay. Now we gotta handle the ground. Same thing. Let me go make a pigtail real quick. If you haven't know or didn't know how to make a pigtail, that's what these are going to be. Right? It's the same thing as part 1. So watch part 1, watch the pigtail that I made for the ground, and you'll see that. Okay? When you buy your green ground nuts, because usually they don't come with them, you can actually buy pigtails with them, or you can make them yourself. I believe it's a little bit more economical to make them yourself, but to each their own. So I'm just going to connect the ground just like I did for my plug. I just got to do it. Awesome. Now remember, code states that this has to be good. If there is an earthquake or something and the house pulls it apart, you're going to have electrical fire, even a shock. So really make sure you yank on these to make sure it's definitely solid, right? We want to make sure everything is good to go and everything is safe. That's what's important, okay? All right, got the pigtail made. Let's connect them. Okay, so we're going to go over to our little plug, which is right here. Turn on the continuity. Remember, I'm just checking to see where everything is at and if everything's connected. So from the plug, it should go over to here. No sound. Oh, guess what? My switch needs to be on. Look at that. You hear that sound? Okay. Nothing over here. It's good. Okay. Let's try our return. Okay, we got it. So there should be nothing in here, absolutely. Let's go check over this way to our little plug. Oh, look at that. Nothing on our ground. Speaking of our ground should travel from here all the way down to this guy, this nut right there. So let's try it. That means everything is flowing correctly. There's no places of negative flow or bad flow. Oh, you hear that? There we go. Okay, let's plug her in and let's try it out, all right? So I'm gonna try to flip this up right here. I won't do that thing to scare you guys anymore. Let me turn this off. Be kind of careful when we do this. Okay, our plug's on. Okay, but our light's not on. Oh, maybe the switch. Boom, we got light, and there you go. You just wired up a receptacle to a switch that goes to a light. You could technically replicate this and do the switch to the receptacle if you want to plug in a lamp or something. You could definitely do that as well. There are so many different options just with this basic circuit setup. Remember a couple of things to keep in mind. Make sure you check your amperage. Make sure you're not overloading that one circuit. Most houses for wall plugs are 15 amp to 20 amp circuits. You can overload 15 amps very easily. 20 amps is pretty good, but they're usually a little bit more money, usually a different kind of setup too. Pay also attention to some voltage, right? These are all 120 volts. That's pretty standard. Once you get up to 240 volts, you may need to add an extra hot wire, but that's for more advanced stuff. And we'll get to that in the next episode, episode 3. I can't promise when that's coming. I just want to do a basic one for you guys. All right. I hope you enjoyed this. There will be more electrical series to come. I will talk to you guys or see you guys in the next video. We'll see you later.